Hi, everyone, and welcome to Get Paid. I'm Deb, and this is Kimberly. And we are here today to talk about what does it mean when companies aren't ready for diversity and inclusion within their organization. And if you were here with us last week, we talked about some of the challenges that recruiters might have in pitching jobs to minority candidates. So today we're going to look at it from a company perspective and find out what it means when companies just aren't yet ready to do it. And I'm going to turn this one over to Kimberly because this is what she does well and spends a lot of time within companies talking about this subject.
Well, thank you, Deb. It's great to be here. Hey, everyone. So I want to start with some interesting numbers, which support the fact that, unfortunately, more companies aren't ready than are. So Pull Up for Change did a recent poll of approximately 2,400 people. And these numbers are very disappointing. So 69% of the 2,400 people say that their company's momentum, because in May, June, some companies, they learned about, people learned about Juneteenth for the first time and, gave people, their employees off for Juneteenth. But since Juneteenth, 69% have seen a drop in the momentum for doing the work to create a more inclusive environment. Okay, 69%. 70% have not seen any meaningful changes or actions within their company. So that means that people aren't being hired. The complexion of the company is not changing in a meaningful way. 78% have not seen any change in their corporate culture. And we know that it's impossible to be inclusive if you haven't been, you just don't hire into that. You have to change the culture. 79% are dissatisfied with their company's response to the call for racial inclusion, right? So that's disappointing as well. This last statistic is really, disappointing is not even a strong enough word, right? 73% are not optimistic about the future based on their company's actions. Now, those are big numbers because I remember, especially on LinkedIn, I remember how, so many people were, we're doing this and we're doing that and we're recruiting and and then we started to see a lot of D&I officers get placed. And you thought, okay, that's change. That's going to make a change. And then I did question it because I think it was 2 years ago when these fashion companies were getting it all wrong, from Gucci to H&M, and a lot of people hired D&I officers. And yet here we are again 2 years later, and these statistics are alarming. So I just think it's time for companies to get ready.
Yeah. And you're right. I mean, those are not good indicators. And I guess my next question to you is when you go into a company and you're hired to go in and kind of assess what's going on, Kimberly, what are some of the signs that you see that let you know that a company might be talking like they want to become inclusive and diverse, but they're not really ready?
Well, there are a few things. Usually when I go in, I do a listening tour, and then I do a total company survey that is specific to that company based on what I've learned in my listening tour. And there are certain things that I hear or see that definitely tell me when a company is not ready. So one of them might be you have so many of your employees, the concentration, right? Concentration of your employees are in the hourly ranks, right? Mm-hmm. Whether it's in the distribution center or if it's a store or the restaurant or whatever that business is, support staff.
Right.
And then the leadership says, well, we are diverse. We have women. we have, we support LGBTQ. We support different religions. But they're not really ready to acknowledge that that's great, but you've created a caste system where all of the ethnicity is in the hourly rank and not in the decision making. And so your leadership does not reflect your customer base, right? And so when I hear those triggers, or I hear this, well, we want to be diverse, but we don't want to reduce our expectations for quality, right? Major, that's a major like red flag.
Red flag. Yeah.
You know, and some people have called it microaggression. It's not micro. There's nothing micro about that. That is just a racist thought that in order for someone of another ethnic group to come into your leadership, that you would have to reduce your standards, which we know is just a falsity. So those are some of the signs that I've seen for companies that aren't ready.
So what are some of the things, the recommendations that you've made to companies who acknowledge perhaps that they're not ready, and you can bring that to them? What are some of the steps that you recommend that companies take in order to be ready?
Well, it's proprietary, right? So it depends on what the company is, but there are some major just basics that I then fine tune for the company I'm working with. First is just to get an understanding. The understand the position that your company is in, because I talk to a lot of CEOs who want to embrace or say they do and think that their companies are ready, but they're not. So really to get an understanding through, as I said, listening tours and surveys, and know what you're working with. Education, right? Education is key. We say to our kids all the time, education is key. Why would we stop educating, right? So education on where we are as a company and where we are as a country, and understanding where that intersectionality is, and why it doesn't exist, where it would be a more inclusive, equitable experience for everyone. Support, right? Once we've educated the team, and it has to be ongoing, education, but support, right? And support looks like open communication. It looks like allyship. I know that's a big word and people talk about it a lot, but it is important to know that you have someone who is there to support you. And also, there's the opportunity for peer circles, right? Why not create peer circles? That's support as well. And we get into recruiting. Where do you recruit from? Do you recruit with your friends in your circle? Are you working with a reputable recruiter who has experience in building diverse and inclusive teams? Do a little research. Make sure that you are working with someone who really knows the landscape. Engagement and retention. If you have not done the work on your culture, then bringing in a people of color and a diverse group of new employees without a culture change is a disaster, because you don't feel supported. And I'm not saying that you have to, flip your culture, but there are certain things that need to happen for an inclusive culture to be successful and retain new talent. It needs to be more like a community, which goes back to communication, education, and support. And then the last thing, but probably the most important, is a system of accountability. It has to be accountability. And from on every level, because D&I and having a diverse and an inclusive organization is not just the responsibility of the D&I officer or one department. There should be equitable diversity and inclusion all throughout the company. And there should be accountability. There's accountability for everything else. It's accountability for, how you grow your team. But it's interesting that there's accountability for that, but it doesn't include an inclusive and diverse team. There's accountability for how you drive sales. There's accountability, for how you communicate. There should be accountability for managing and leading a successful, inclusive, and diverse team.
Yeah. And that makes a lot of sense. So before we sign off, what is the bottom line here, Kimberly?
So the bottom line really is this, right? Get paid. There is a profitable advantage to inclusive diversity. And because the customer base is so broad, the world is smaller than it used to be because everything is accessible. So the bottom line is companies need to understand what needs to be done. You don't know what you don't know. Hire a professional to help you identify those opportunities. You need to have support and a system for all of your team members to navigate, right? Because there's politics, there's a lot involved. So understand, navigate, and then you want to accelerate your business, then that is reflective in your team. And so the tools should be there for the acceleration of your whole team. So those are the three things that I would leave everyone with: understand, navigate, accelerate.
That's great. And that makes so much sense. Well, thanks everybody for joining us. Next week, we're going to talk about ageism in the workplace and how recruiters can support women and everybody over 50 to get into the workplace and have really great experiences. So we thank you and we're signing off, and it was good to see you.
Thanks, everyone. askgetpaid@gmail.com.
Yep. If you have topics or questions, please email us.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.